Tamar, and I am a woman of Christmas. I was only 14 years old, working in the field at my father's house, when I noticed the caravan. It was Judah. We were afraid of Judah's God. See, his God could turn a thriving city into a land of sand and salt. Judah had 3 sons, and he had a story that was full of wrong choices. He had sold his youngest brother, Joseph, into slavery. He had married a Canaanite woman, Bathsheba, and he had broken his father's heart, Jacob. Even at my own wedding feast, I felt like a prisoner, very unwelcomed in that home. The gods of Canaan were everywhere, cold and lifeless. And I asked about Judah's God, but not much was mentioned there. The crushing condemnation that I endured from Bathsheba destroyed me. I was not good enough. And I pled with Judah, but those pleas fell on deaf ears. He called for a feast to include all the family, and of course, Bathsheba was very anxious. Arrived in his drunken state, and Judah stood and made an announcement. I'm not settled yet on who will be my heir. Bathsheba was angered, and the argument ensued. Was engulfed in anger, and he pointed his finger at his father and he said, "It doesn't matter what you say. When you're gone, my brothers will do exactly as I say." As he spoke those words, fear came into his eyes. The cup dropped from his hand and his body fell to the ground. It was a sound I'll never forget. He was gone. And now I wondered if Judah would do what was demanded of him, of the custom. Clearly, his God held the power of life and death. I did marry a second son, Onan, but I soon came to find out that he was more evil and more cunning than his older brother. He had no intention of bearing a son to inherit Er's portion. Now, I had no hope of an honorable future. I might as well be dead. Death did come, not to me, but to Onan. 2 sons dead. Somehow I was to blame. And that youngest son was sent away. Too young to marry, they said. So Judah did what was right, what he always did, was send people away. Sent Joseph away. He would send away for days because he couldn't manage him. He was sending that youngest son away, and now he was sending me back to my father's house to live as a widow, as a servant. Wear their clothes, eat their food, do their work. Until one day in the marketplace, I saw him. He was no longer a young boy, he was a man. He was Judah's youngest son. And I realized at that exact moment that Judah had abandoned me. Ah, the crowd, their comments were full of pity. Poor woman, no home, no husband, no son. I pled with Judah, please do the right thing. You see, he didn't. And I took matters into my own hands. I knew there was a festival. I knew he would attend. I knew of his questionable character. And I also knew that his wife had passed. I was counting on him to make a mistake. So I arrived at the gate. There were dozens of us there. When I could see him coming in the distance, I recognized him. He didn't recognize me. He offered me money, a goat. I said I didn't want that. I wanted the cord from around his neck, the staff that he carried, and the ring he wore. He turned them over to me in an instant. Everything that represented his household, he gave away to a harlot. The servant did return later with the goat to exchange the items, and I was long gone. No one knew of me being there. I became pregnant with twins. My father found out, and of course the beatings began. I was causing dishonor to his home now. Judah found out, and he called for my death, burning. He wanted me to suffer. Hadn't I suffered enough under his hand? The gentleman came to get me, and I gave them 3 things: the staff, the cord, and the ring. They returned the items to Judah, and he realized the mistake he had made, and he brought me to his home. There I gave birth to 2 boys. The first, Zerah, presented his arm, and they tied the red cord around his wrist to represent the birthright. And in God's providence, he withdrew his hand, and Perez was born first. The Lion of Judah would be born through the lineage of my son Perez. My name is Tamar. I'm a woman of Christmas, standing in the lineage of grace.
As we continue in worship, would you please stand?